Have you ever wondered why you have not changed your lifestyle? You are not spending more recklessly than before, yet every month money feels tighter. There is no obvious bad decision, no financial crash, just the same life, the same habits, but less money left at the end of each month. When inflation drags on, the natural reaction for most people is to earn more, work harder, find new income streams, hope that income will eventually catch up with rising costs. But the people who remain financially stable do not start there. They understand that when living costs rise faster than income, the real issue is not how much you earn, but how inflation quietly enters your daily life. Housing, insurance, food, and essential services have increased steadily for years, while real income for many workers has barely moved. This is not a personal feeling. It is a structural pressure that many people are experiencing at the same time. My name is Dolan, and the most important thing you need to understand is that inflation rarely knocks you down overnight. It does something far more dangerous. It erodes your sense of financial safety month by month, decision by decision, until one day you realize you have been moving backward without noticing. If you feel increasing financial pressure, even though you have not made any obvious mistakes, this video is not here to tell you to tighten your budget a little more. It is also not here to repeat the same financial advice you've heard many times without fixing the core problem. In the rest of this video, I will share a different way of looking at inflation and the cost of living, not through headlines or economic forecasts, but through small signals that show up in your everyday life. These signals determine whether you are holding your ground or slowly slipping backward financially without realizing it. This approach is not about making more money. It is about recognizing early where things are leaking, where decisions that seem harmless slowly weaken your sense of security over time. Once you understand this mechanism, the way you see money, spending, and financial stability will change fundamentally. If you are tired of always trying harder yet still feeling behind, the next part of this video will help you understand why that happens and where you need to look first. In recent years, financial anxiety has stopped being tied to major events like job loss or personal crisis. It shows up in ordinary moments: higher bills without higher usage, rent increasing every year, insurance, healthcare, education, and basic services taking up a larger share of monthly income. There is no single moment where you can point and say, this is where things went wrong. What makes this pressure difficult to notice is how slowly it unfolds. Nominal income may rise, but costs rise faster in areas you cannot avoid. According to long-term economic data, housing, food, and essential services have increased steadily, while real income after inflation for most workers has grown very little. This creates an invisible gap between the feeling of moving forward and the reality underneath. Many people respond by blaming themselves. They believe they are not disciplined enough, not working hard enough, or not smart enough with money. But the problem is not entirely personal behavior. The financial environment has changed, while the way we judge stability is still based on old standards. When living costs keep climbing, decisions that once felt safe begin to carry new risks. Holding cash, delaying investment, or focusing only on income growth while ignoring spending structure can quietly push you backward even when everything looks fine on the surface. Understanding this context is the first step, because if you do not see where the pressure comes from, it is easy to confuse doing the right thing with slowly paying a hidden cost. The first signal appears early, yet is ignored the most. You hold more cash to feel safe, but that sense of safety does not last. Inflation erodes cash purchasing power every month, making what feels like a solid reserve thinner without triggering obvious alarms. The solution is not to push yourself into risk, but to redefine the role of cash. Keep cash for what it is meant to do, short-term spending and emergencies, while clearly identifying which part of your assets needs to keep pace with rising living costs. The first step is setting a clear limit on cash, instead of letting your entire sense of security depend on it. The second signal is when fixed costs slowly take over your budget. Housing, insurance, and essential services rise steadily, shrinking your flexibility. The problem is not that these costs exist, but that they grow unchecked. The solution begins by viewing fixed costs as a ratio, not a number. Tracking that ratio over time tells you when it crosses a safe threshold, before your choices become locked. The third signal appears when income increases no longer bring relief, costs respond faster than salary, leaving your effort only enough to stay in place. The solution is separating income growth from lifestyle growth. Each time income rises, decide in advance what portion protects your future and what portion is allowed into spending. When this rule becomes default, inflation loses much of its power. The fourth signal is when debt starts maintaining stability instead of bridging gaps. Credit shifts from a flexible tool to a way of covering rising costs. The solution is not eliminating debt immediately, but restoring its role. Clearly distinguish debt that supports long-term growth from debt that hides spending pressure. This clarity alone restores control. The fifth signal is delaying long-term decisions because nothing feels certain. You know preparation matters, but you keep waiting for a better time. The solution is not big moves, but consistent ones. Small actions taken regularly allow progress even in difficult conditions. Standing still while costs rise is riskier than it appears. The final signal is mental fatigue around money. Under prolonged pressure, you start avoiding numbers. The solution is not tracking everything more closely, but simplifying your framework. A system clear enough to always show where you stand reduces stress and prevents problems from accumulating silently. Looking back at these signals, you may not see a clear disaster. No reckless decisions, no dramatic financial mistake. Everything stays within acceptable limits. And that is exactly what makes inflation dangerous. Most financial pressure does not come from one big hit. It comes from many small forces pulling you in a direction you did not actively choose. Each signal alone may not worry you. Together, they create momentum that is difficult to reverse. What most people miss is the deeper cause behind these signals. Not just rising costs or shrinking income, but a psychological mechanism shaping how you decide, react to pressure, and judge safety. If you do not understand that mechanism, you can fix individual details and still feel unstable. The next part is not about money itself. It is about how your brain handles money during prolonged inflation and why even capable people get stuck. What makes prolonged inflation dangerous is not the numbers. It is how the human brain reacts to constant pressure that never triggers alarms. When costs rise slowly, your brain does not register crisis. It registers inconvenience. That mechanism quietly distorts financial decisions without you noticing. The brain prioritizes pain reduction before long-term optimization. When bills rise and leftover money shrinks, the instinct is not rebuilding structure, but removing discomfort. You delay big decisions. You use credit to preserve familiar life. You tell yourself this is temporary. These choices are not wrong short-term. But when inflation persists, they become habits. Another blind spot is how we measure stability. Many people define financial safety as things still working. Bills paid, job intact, no urgent stress. But in a rising cost environment, things working does not mean standing still. It may mean sliding slowly down a slope your brain was never designed to detect. This is why disciplined, intelligent people with good incomes still feel exhausted by money. They are not lacking knowledge. They are trapped in a psychological loop that prioritizes survival responses over forward progress. Once you see this, you realize the problem is not effort, it is misreading signals. Before moving on, it is important to pause and see what is actually happening. Inflation does not attack with a single blow. It does something subtler. It enters through small changes you accept, then slowly turns them into a new normal. Holding excess cash for safety erodes purchasing power, rising fixed costs remove flexibility, using income growth or credit to ease short-term pressure stretches an increasingly fragile structure. The key is not individual details, but the pattern behind them. Prolonged inflation does not make you poorer through one bad decision. It moves you backward through many reasonable short-term choices that work against you long-term. When you start seeing signals instead of events, the financial picture becomes clearer. The most important lesson here is not about inflation or living costs. It is about how you define financial safety. Many people believe that if everything functions, bills are paid, and income flows steadily, they are fine. But in a rising cost environment, surface stability can hide real decline underneath. Wealth or struggle here is not decided by salary, but by the ability to notice and respond early to small signals. People who maintain their financial position do not do so by earning more, but by not allowing inflation to quietly dictate their lives. When you view money through behavior and structure instead of income alone, you move ahead without extreme actions. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope this perspective helps you better understand the signals quietly shaping your financial life. We will continue exploring these topics in future Money Signals videos. I will see you there.